Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Saturday edition of Sidelines. College baseball, college football, college basketball. Just wrapping up basketball. Still a lot to talk about because coaches, every coach out there is active and in the portal, I can assure you. And if you're not active in the portal, you're like a bond salesman who's not active on the phone. People are not going to call you and say, hey, take 25 million of these and put an extra point in there. You know, it doesn't work like that. You got to get after it in the portal. I'm not the biggest fan of the portal in NIL. But right now, it's the law of the land, and we got to deal with it. And we're figuring it out. But those coaches that are stubborn and not, it's going to be tough. But some rosters are 50%, you know, in baseball. Football, it's not unusual to bring in 20 guys in the portal or 25. Lane Kiffin's one of the best coaches out there. Auburn baseball coach, Butch Thompson is going to join us from Tuscaloosa. We'll be talking SEC baseball. Also joined by Billy Roberts from Atlanta, Brookhaven, right next to Atlanta and Buckhead. He'll be jumping in with us. Also, Basketball Writers Association of America, Hall of Fame writer, newly inducted, Kevin Scarbinsky, native of Pottsville, PA, lives in Birmingham, longtime, one of the best sports writers in America, will join us. Top of hour number 2, Yancy Porter will jump on board with us from Oxford, Mississippi, the Rebel Yell hotline, and Buddy Martin checks in, GatorBaitMedia.com, premier sports writer, a veteran of so many great sporting events, covers them all, not afraid to voice an opinion. Billy Roberts is on with us right now, and as we do always at the beginning of every show, we take our oath of allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. I can assure you, there are no soft people here, no candy asses. We respect and uphold the First Amendment, the right of free speech and assembly, and we're not afraid to voice an opinion. Hey, is this meal good? Nope, it's not. But if I'm recruiting your son or daughter, I'm asking for seconds. Billy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. All right. Real quick, I was watching a commercial last night before Coach Thompson jumps on with us. And is that Albies, the Braves players on one of those commercials?
Yes.
They're everywhere. And
he's got a good agent. He's doing ads for BMW and everything else. Yeah, he's Taco Bell, all kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Billy, you make talking about the Braves as exciting as talking about SEC football. And Braves fans and Cardinals fans are Southeastern fans, which means they love college football, getting together, tailgating, eating, drinking, just having a great time, whatever. But so far, before Coach Thompson gets on here, your thoughts on the Braves, one of America's teams.
Yeah, they look good. I watched the game last night. Charlie Morton came out, and he's older now, so it takes him, like all of us, an inning to kind of get unstretched and get loose. But man, when he gets on a roll, he's as good as he ever was. You know, he was hitting upper 90s sometimes, and looks good. And this is the way their lineup is, and it has been all season. They've got 3 guys that are potential MVP candidates leading off the top 3 hitters on the lineup. And Acuna gets a single, and then Olsen hits a home run immediately, so they're up 2-0. And the pitcher hadn't even thrown 7 pitches yet. Snyder for the Cardinals. Kansas City Royals. So they look really good. The lineup is deadly, and they ended up hitting 5 home runs last night. I mean, they're going to beat a lot of teams if they hit 5 home runs a night. So they look great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're hearing this, and I want to ask Coach Thompson about it, why there's more home runs. There's so many different theories on that, but I don't think it's because of it's hotter or what have you like that. What is your theory?
I think it probably does have something to do with the weather. I remember the first year of the Truist Park when it opened in 2017. There was a lot of alarm because balls were flying out of the park, and everybody's like, "Man, what have they got here? Another launching pad potentially." And for many years now, the Braves have tried to protect their pitchers, and they've tried to create a pitcher-friendly park. Turner Field was certainly like that. But then it calmed down, and it really hadn't been notorious. Again, it's more of a fair park with a normal number of home runs being hit.
Yeah.
But that first month of April in 2017, balls were flying out. So, who knows, it's probably has as much to do with the weather as anything else. But they do tinker with the baseball. I think Major League Baseball bought Rawlings a couple years ago, and they certainly control the ball, the manufacturer of the ball. So they might tinker with that and make a little tighter stitching or different kind of leather, or who knows what they do. The players are bigger and stronger than they ever were. In the early part of the season, typically the pitchers have the advantage and the batters start a little slower, but maybe this year it's the other way around. The pitchers are slow coming out of the blocks.
Well, Billy, the distance from the mound to home plate is the same. The distance to left field, center field, and right field is the same, but it's not the same, or is it, in every Major League Baseball stadium?
No, it's different. And I had an insight that I didn't fully appreciate earlier, that even soccer stadiums are not uniform size. Football fields are, we know that, but baseball fields and soccer pitches are all different. They're not exactly the same, which I don't know why it didn't occur to me. I guess I assume since football fields have the same dimensions that soccer pitches would too, but they do not. They're all a little bit different. So that's interesting. But baseball, we accept the fact that all the fields are unusual and not symmetrical. Wrigley Field is not the same as Fenway Park. They're different. The outfield fences are got different angles and different gaps. Everything's different. Houston has a notorious outfield. For a long time, they had a hill in center field that the center fielder had to run up a hill to catch a ball, and they did away with that a couple of years ago. But for the first couple of years of Minute Maid Park, they had a hill in the outfield.
Well, that's what makes each park unique. Everybody knows about the Green Monster, left field Fenway Park. And when you've got that big monster, it's just a natural magnet for everybody to try to knock one out of the park. But I think what I love about baseball, well, maybe it is the heat, but are they bigger and stronger? In the late 90s, when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were front page of the sports section every day. But you could tell they were doing a lot of stuff that they probably shouldn't have been doing. And it wasn't natural. And if there's one thing I detest, it's people who cheat. Steroids and juicers. You remember, Billy, in the 2008 Olympics that were held, I believe, in Beijing, out of absolutely nowhere, the Chinese swimmers just absolutely dominated. They have about as much tradition in Olympic swimming as, Ole Miss does in hockey. It's laughable. And
well, when you and I were young, East Germany always had these women swimmers that looked pretty butch. They were like dudes in women swimsuits. And if they would have done DNA testing on them, they probably would have been biologically male, I think.
Well, it was proven that the East German judges and the Russians were doing all kinds of nefarious things to enhance the performances of their athletes. I remember in gymnastics or whatever, it was shocking to me, but they would always say the East German judge gives them a 9. But when their athletes, the East Germans or the Russians or any of the Soviet bloc countries were participating, they got the really high scores. But there's no doubt that Germany, East Germany, Russia, and those Soviet bloc countries, they really ought to throw their medals in the trash.
Well, Katharina Witt, she was a good-looking ice skater back in the day. She was from East Germany. She was legit, but yeah, I mean, they definitely, the ice skating judges were they had different standards for sure.
And the weightlifters, the people they that's the ones that get me. But people that are juiced up, it's so obvious when they're doing it. But Sammy Sosa had a visor coming out of his forehead. I mean, you got to be careful. You'll also hope you don't plan on having a family naturally, because it was I watched that, and I'm saying it hurt baseball, and now baseball is coming back, and now we're hearing this theory about the balls. I'm not a meteorologist. There's some really good ones out there. If you get any possibility of bad weather, you may be watching your weatherman for 5 or 6 hours straight or longer. But there's something going on in baseball. And Coach Thompson's just is detained here. He's going to be with us in a second. I want to get into that. But football, you look at field goals. We've got guys now that are coming into college that are more than one that have kicked 65 yards plus for a field goal in a practice, whatever. Now, again, you try to do that when you've got 11 people trying to block it. It's different. But we're going distance. We still go back. The NFL record held forever. Tom Dempsey of the Saints, when he kicked the 63-yarder, that was still, that's the stuff of legend, whatever. But I think college baseball in the SEC, it's so vicious and so competitive right now. You're not going to get any kind of break. One coach that will tell us how vicious and competitive SEC baseball is. It's like being in the SEC, coach, and the SEC West. I use this analogy. You're in a bar at 2 a.m. and you're feeling feisty and want to fight. You look to your left, there's a Ranger. To your right, there's a Delta Force guy. Over there's Delta. There's Green Beret. There's Marine Recon. There's Air Force Commando. Who are you going to fight with? And then you got to think about what are you. But it definitely gets you as that movie Braveheart, when Angus's father had that arrow and he pulled it out of his chest. He goes, that'll wake you up in the morning. But you got to love it. Y'all got an 8-4 victory last night, Coach. And man, 6.2 innings of scoreless baseball. Let's talk baseball because I love it.
Yeah, man, this is year 22 in the Southeastern Conference, and I hope it's not dog years because I'm really on up there in age. But it's been a blast, and it's so much fun to play your rival. I have to make sure I do a good job because it's such a challenging deal. Last week we had 88 former SEC baseball players on opening day major league rosters. Wow. You look at the Southeastern Conference in baseball, we're killing each other. And, I think this is one of the best teams Brad Bohannon's had on paper since he's been there. The SEC, a non-conference this year, because I'm on the regional advisory committee that'll start Monday, representing every team in the SEC for 6 weeks leading up to, postseason and selection with all these people that are going to be selecting the teams for postseason. And I'm here to brag on every team in the SEC and make the best case for them. And we have won 83% of our non-conference games so far this year. That is 12% higher than the number 2 conference. So, we're beating each other up and we get mad at our players. And, there is a phenomenon going on in college baseball now, and it's landed on us as much as it has anybody, just the ability to find the strike zone. The strike zones are smaller. The umpires are being accountable to technology as soon as the game's over to be debriefed. The East and West is not present as much as it used to be. You catch me, a few hours after a Friday night SEC ball game getting ready for 2 more, and there's a million things running through my head this morning.
Yeah, well, no doubt. Billy?
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you something specific about kind of the psychology of a visit to the mound with a pitcher who's, maybe, not not figuring it out early enough in the game. So I was watching a Braves game the other night, and Kranitz, who's the pitching coach, went out to Strider, and he really barked at him, and kind of jerked a nod in him. And immediately his velo was up 2 more miles an hour, and he was mowing people down. And after the game, they asked Strider, what did he say to you? Because the performance was dramatically different. And Strider said, I was pacing myself. I was trying to figure out how to, kind of save a little bit and go longer in the game. But he came out and told me just to let it fly and don't worry about, next inning or the inning after that. Have you had situations like that where, you had to go out and kind of change somebody's mindset right then and there and go, what are you doing? Your head, not necessarily not in the game, but your strategy needs a correction immediately.
That's what's a challenge with a lot of first-year players. It sounds like that's a veteran pitching coach, the example that you're mentioning, and that's knowing your guy. And it's taking cues, right? You're both giving cues back and forth. Maybe the pitcher's giving you body language or he's giving you performance cues like how his stuff is playing there for the moment. If you know your guy, then, there's some guys that you absolutely can elevate their game by, getting with them. There's some guys that you have to pad along, but that's just a sign of experience, in my opinion. And you want them to go good, So, people talk about going to the mound and telling a joke and making people smile. I mean, it's just knowing your guy, knowing your situation. And, that's what you're there for. You want a pitcher, especially, a big leaguer, you want somebody to run their own show.
Yeah.
And you want them to absolutely do that. It's good to have experience of, I think a pitching coach's best deal is to help somebody get their own identity and keep them out of the ditch. And if you have an advisement there, you give it.
I love this answer. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. Auburn coach Butch Thompson, Billy Roberts, Rob Browne, right after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, continuing. I love this question from Billy and Coach. Your answer, like you said, when you go out there to the mound, you like him to be running his own show. Again, I say you keep the calm, which I know. In addition to doing this show, managing people's money for almost 32 years, the market's down 1,200 points. What did you do, Rob? I'm like, was it? I don't get caught up in that. I've learned so much having you on this show these last 3 years. And Billy, I think you would agree, because I know our listeners go, Butch Thompson is not only an elite baseball coach, he's a psychologist and like a family counselor. But you've got 3 daughters. I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. So the way you keep your calm, you always say, don't let the moment be bigger than you and then what it is. And that's everything.
Well, like this morning, I never, getting to you 10 minutes late this morning to be on the radio with you. I'm sitting here thinking, I do the things I do every week, when I try to get on the show with you. But then, instead of going crazy, I just started thinking through what's going on. It's like, oh, I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Of course, nothing works over here Wi-Fi or anything like that. So it just took me a few minutes, but I didn't go. Actually, in all honesty, the last couple of weeks has been hard because we can't do what we want to do if we can't put our head in the mitt as a pitching staff. And so I do think I have a moment every year, and maybe I'm past it, but the last couple of weeks has been hard, and you do. I do think patience and all those things are going on, but then the last couple of weeks have been tough. And then I do, it's like the Navy SEALs. You don't rise to the level of your competition, you sink to the level of your training. And as I think about our ball club and I think about the words that I'm using with my club, what I have to be careful of is I talked about the problem. It's like that mound visit. You can't just go to the mound and talk about that problem and think everything's going to be okay. If you say pink elephant and blue shoes or whatever, you can't say that and it not be there. And, that PCT, that problem centric thinking is a challenge. Yeah. And so you might talk about an elephant in the room every now and then, but just understand that'll be part of the thought. And probably the better thing, the mound visit, to go out to yell at your player, just to make you feel better, is not good. If you got a player, that if you get with him, it makes him better, that's good. But if you're just going to go and present a problem and it's going to make things worse but make you feel better, that's not what you're into. So, all right, we all know what the problem is. We all know we need to throw more strikes. But how about offering a solution? To me, that would be the next level, a deeper level of being a pitching coach. You just look like you're rushing ahead a little bit. I can just, from the side, I have a better vantage point. It looks like your arm's just dragging. Can we stay over the rubber another beat, another click? And I think you can sync up and finish this pitch. Or like, hey, I'm going to get the catcher just to slide just a little bit more. I think that's going to help you line it up and allow you to get back to working in straight lines. If those can be the words instead of just going out there and barking a problem. To answer Billy's question the best I think I can and taking a minute to do it, those are the words that probably need to be said, that's centered around a solution instead of just beating down and talking about the obvious problem. I mean, everybody is aware of what the problem is.
Yeah.
We are looking for people that have potential solutions or can make things a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Billy.
Yeah, Coach Leo Mazzone was a legendary pitching coach for the Braves for a long time, and he wrote a book about how he managed, Smoltz and Glavine and Max. He had, just an embarrassment of Hall of Famers that he coached. And he would say, Maddox, when he would go out to the mound, if ever, it was just to give him a little bit of a breather, because he didn't really need to tell him what to do or give him any kind of insight. Smoltz needed kind of a softer touch. He was more of an emotional guy, and he needed to kind of take a different approach. But Glavine, he could be tough with. Glavine was a hockey player, so he said I could cuss him out. I could tell him to get his act together, and kind of work blue with him a little bit. But couldn't do that with Smoltz because, he was more emotional. So he said part of it was just figuring out what each guy needed. They all technically, could make adjustments in the middle of the game. Like you said, they could, toe the rubber a little differently or make some mid-game adjustments to their mechanics. But, sometimes they all needed a little different something in their ear to kind of get through an inning or work their way through the lineup. So it's interesting that you're saying that, the approach is not necessarily, let's not solve the problem. We all know what the problem is. We just kind of need to, kind of figure out, from a solution standpoint, how to get you through this little bump that you're in right in the moment. It's always hard. Even with kids, we're all parents, it's hard. Each kid, you got to treat them all differently. They're all, not all of them that respond to the same kind of parenting. I guess that's exactly how you have to treat it as a coach of 26 guys on your roster.
Yeah, you just got to be careful with the words you say. And no offense to Leo Mazzone, but Rob Browne could have coached those. He could have been the pitching coach for the Braves at that time.
And Leo Mazzone will admit that too.
That's right. That's right.
But they all needed a little something at different times, and he knew them well enough to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, Tom Glavine's son, Peyton, just graduated our program a couple of years ago, and Tom always spoke graciously. He didn't say – he knew what he had. Leo knew what he had, and he could have He could have messed it up, right? So he absolutely knew those guys and didn't do too much, and that's huge. One of my mentors, Brian Shoup, was at Mississippi State and coached for Ron Polk, and Clark and Palmero were freshmen, and they had the statue ceremony for Coach Polk yesterday at Mississippi State. I know that was a big day over there, but when Palmero and Clark were freshmen, Coach Polk come around the corner and he saw Coach Shoup at the time working with both those guys in the cage. And Coach Polk come down to Coach Shoup and like, well, what are you doing with these two guys? He's like, man, I'm working on the swing. He's like, hey, we got 45 boys over here to go work with a swing. We're going to leave these two alone.
No doubt.
And that was he was telling me that one day because our best guy, I'm over there, turning him into a pretzel. And he's like, man, you got all these guys to work with. This guy's good enough. Don't mess him up. And when you have an awareness of not doing that to a very special player, I think that's good. I think sometimes people, they feel like they get this special player and they're like, oh, I'm going to make this guy.
Yeah.
And probably the best thing to do is to get out of a way for the special type.
And you had Tim Hudson on your staff, and obviously his accomplishments speak for themselves. How was he with the guys? Were they? Did they? I know they had to get past being in awe of him a little bit, but when they got comfortable being around him, how did he work with them psychologically?
All day long. One of Tim Hudson's biggest gifts is he can get up before the sunlight, and he can still be plowing when the sun goes down. And nobody, maybe in my 30 plus years, has had the work ethic of Tim Hudson to be able to look you in the eye and to be able to work at a high rate and never lose steam through a day. So I know he had unbelievable gifts. You don't just wake up and win 223 Major League Baseball games. But if you have the wherewithal to just be able to focus for long periods of time, you can beat a lot of people, because a lot of people fade and a lot of it's normal. He has an uncanny ability to focus for a long period of time. He literally brought a pedigree, could talk pitching, could talk about starting Game 7 of World Series, but he also, in the other hand, he had his toolbox, and he would work in the bullpen, and just one of the best workers I've ever ran across is Tim Hudson, and just a good dude, man. Not a lot of chinks in his armor.
No. And peak physical condition. That guy looked amazing at all. I mean, he lived in the gym, obviously.
And still does. I mean, it's just he's not the biggest dude, but he is just absolutely, you can just tell the metabolism is just rolling because he never stops.
Yeah. And Coach, one of the things too is you talk so much about the psychology. People look at a schedule in the summer in football or in October at a basketball schedule or at a baseball schedule, and they're going, golly, the third series, we've got to play at this team or wherever. And to me, that's stupid, because what you do every time you play is simply positioning you for how you're going to play tomorrow and the day after that. And I always remember someone who's Billy and mine's age, Bo Jackson, he used to sprint coming off the baseball field into the dugout and going out, versus guys that, let's say you're down 6-3 in the 8th inning and guys are, dragging their feet and walking with their heads down. My wife has a psychology major. She studies body language when she watches games, and she's incredibly accurate. But that's something I notice is no matter what happens, what you say in that locker room after a loss is a lot more important than what you say after a win, because if you don't get it right, it could be 2 in a row or 3 in a row. You can't get stuck in that. And that's something I've learned a ton from great coaches like you.
Well, I just, if you don't want the hole to get any deeper, stop digging. And every time you throw something, you're just digging a little bit deeper. I mean, It's already, life's going to happen. And the good times, the mid times, the bad times. But if you want the hole not to get any deeper, the first thing to do is to stop digging and just kind of reassess. And, when I was not at my best as a coach, I didn't really get this from a book, just learned from experience. after a loss, pointing out all these problems because you're not in a good mood to a team is only digging the hole deeper. So if a coach is equipped to talk to his team after the game, like most do, then that's great. I wasn't doing a great job with that. And at least when I talk to the team after the game now, it's not to bring up the problems or the challenges we just had. It's probably just to give them information of like how to move forward. This is a solution, and you know, when you need to report to eat, and then when you need to be back at the park the next day. That's better to meet with than. I just think time after challenges is good. It's not a bad thing, because usually if you try to hit them 2 minutes after being challenged for 3 hours, it's a delicate thing of not making the hole deeper by the words you say.
Yeah. Well, and I think Billy and I both are watching as we do so much baseball, all the different sports. You might play close to 60 games if you get to the World Series and you win it all. And your schedule, you know, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you get the midweek game. Do the teams like UAB or Troy or South Alabama or UNA, they're going to be jacked up to play you. And so is everybody else, because you've been to the World Series 2 of the last 3 times. That makes it easy for you to get motivated, doesn't it? Regardless of who you're playing, you never look at another team and say, well, we can just beat them by showing up.
Not anymore. Not in Division I baseball. That may have been the case at some point in time where you felt better. The game of baseball is not designed. Whoever that dude is on the mound can absolutely change everything. He can transcend how good you have to be with the rest of the team. But this day and time, I find myself being more spirited on a Tuesday and just giving more information on a Friday, because usually the midweeks after a tough SEC weekend, man, sometimes it's hard to get them back up 48 hours later. And I think that's where you really have to try to squeeze the juice. Friday night before you play in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and it's our biggest rival, or in Gainesville or whatever town you want to put in there, you don't have to say as much. Everybody pretty much knows that's what they signed up for and came to compete at this level for. So we find ourselves, and then, you know, our midweek, that's no issue. This thing's about around RPI and how does a team get one. If you're not in the Southeastern Conference, it doesn't just supply automatic great RPI for you if you win enough games. If you're not in the conference, then when you get a chance to play a team from the conference like ours, then, you know, we have seen we'll see weekend rotation guys on a Tuesday, and I'm down to number 14 and 15. You know, that's a tough draw sometimes. But I'm not. You don't make excuses. You know, we make our schedule. This is our journey, and these are things that we have to figure out. And sometimes when things are rolling with your pitching staff, it's much, much easier. When it's not, I mean, it can be a challenge. The mound has a way of, in our sport, the mound is everything. It's like the line of scrimmage, I would assume, like in football.
I like that term. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. And it's kind of like the 30-year bond is in the bond market, the 30-year treasury. It just that 94 feet, that's or 60. What is the distance? 60 feet?
60 feet, 6 inches.
60 feet, 6 inches. Yeah. I'll just say this, Coach. Baseball is becoming so much more popular now because of these guys come into the SEC for at least 3 years. You mentioned, and Kevin Scarbinsky's on with us right now. And Kevin, congratulations again on being inducted into the American Basketball Writers Hall of Fame out in Houston. That was huge. And Coach, you look at the popularity of baseball, and now I got to ask your opinion or what you think about the home run numbers. Is it because it's warmer? What are your thoughts on that? That's a crazy question.
There's more than one. I thought at the beginning of postseason last year, you know, we had baseballs all year last year. Then we actually hosted a regional last year. So the NCAA brings the baseballs. As crazy as that sounds, they physically bring baseballs in for whoever hosts the regional sites. And I thought from right there at the beginning of postseason last year, I've immediately saw where I thought the ball traveled more. So for us, since we're such a tight group of guys, because everybody's going, is it the bat? Is it the ball? I honestly thought it was noticeable with the postseason batch of baseballs that come in last year. I also think there's a phenomenon about the strike zones being smaller. So the SEC umpire, every college umpire now, I think they're being evaluated like they never have been before. So when they get to the end of the game, they absolutely are being evaluated on their balls and strikes called. And I think when you're evaluated on that and it's held to that square box like you see for a Major League Baseball game, I think that automatically makes the strike zone smaller. There's more offense, and there's absolutely more walks, more of those things going on that's kind of driving us crazy because we love our game, and our game's a little sloppy right now. We're in a transition. So you got a clock that if things are going good, you can roll. If things aren't going good, there's almost like you can see in young people, and we're seeing it more because we're caught with the first
Coach,
year group
hold that
of
thought.
young
We're
players.
going to take a quick break. I want to come back and finish it. A few more minutes with you and Kevin Scarbinsky, Billy Roberts, Rob Browne, Butch Thompson, right after this quick commercial break. And Coach, I like, baseball, the popularity of it, and then the scrutiny of the umpires and all, and the strike zone being smaller and the evaluation and all. Just because we're doing that, are the umpires, are they getting better? Are they just having more things put onto them?
I'm not going to answer that portion of the question.
They're the best. They always do a fair job.
Hey, there's great men. It's funny. They just, they'll say the same thing back to me as a coach. So I just, it's the little humor in that. Honestly, I don't think they're happy either. I think we're all going through something right now to try to make our game better, if that makes sense. But it manifests itself in a way that, we won an SEC baseball game on the road last night. We had a shutout for 8 innings and just getting to the finish line. 7 of the last 12 hitters that we faced were either walked or hit by a pitch. It's like it gets to the big critical moments of the ball game in that clock, in that tight zone, and it just shows up in the moments. And so, we won a game 8-4, and, it's awesome, but it's not. It just feels like we're in transition with some stuff. And again, I know I got more young pitchers trying to figure things out than others right now being caught in it. But, you want to make sure you're maintaining the quality. So hopefully these adjustments and we all get comfortable with it and it's going to make our game better. But it does seem like the baseball, the zones are smaller, which, it makes for great offense. So if you're that guy, you love it. Every week we're facing great SEC offenses. Every one of them can play, including ours, like a Bryson Ware. I think that smaller strike zone, I think that's how Sonny DeShera, I think that was a secret success for him to be the SEC Player of the Year last year with Dylan Cruz. I think Bryson Ware's got 15 home runs, and because I think his swing naturally got smaller with the smaller strike zone, and I think it makes him a more dangerous hitter.
Yeah. Kevin, jump in here. I like that answer about the umpires. Absolutely. They're all great. Coach is smart, diplomatic.
Butch has been around long enough. He knows.
Yeah, I don't need any more emails or anything coming today.
I had a question though on this subject, Butch. I found it interesting in Major League Baseball. Of course, they've gone to the pitch clock this season, and I've seen people theorize that they have seen more batters hit by pitch, a couple of guys hit in the face, sadly, because pitchers are rushing, because they're not, especially at that level, even though they've done it in the minor leagues and if they pitched in college, of course, they should be used to it. But really, it's a relatively new phenomenon. Have you seen that in college baseball? Is it a concern of yours that, as you mentioned it in late innings, same thing happened in the Florida game? I think they were winning 10-4 going into the ninth. They lost 13-10 to Georgia last night. So are you concerned, though, about pitchers rushing and losing that edge and more players, more hitters getting hit?
Yes. I think it's critical, too. And I think it's, Rob already says I'm a psychologist, so I don't need to play doctor. But ATP, as we're doing something physical, the more you do it, at some point there has to be a reset. You wind up using everything available. You need sometimes you need 30 seconds to restore everything. And I think Rob, y'all need to bring somebody on that can really speak to that knows what they're talking about. But just all the doctors and all the smart people, I have been been listening to people and how they train. I've always heard about ATP recovery my entire career. We have absolutely zapped that. Yeah. What's going on in the game is not normal. And we usually can handle normal. Kevin, you beat me. I beat you, all this, but there's some weird stuff going on right now, like the game you just referenced, where you can go around the country at the end of the night and just look at those things. And I think that happens. The breath is probably more important. Can you get a breath within 20 seconds, but then you got to be right back into a pitch? The clock in the Major League Baseball is a little bit shorter than it is for college even. And these are men, right, that are getting – these are professionals. And I think when you're rushed, and I think that ATP is kind of needs a reset, then I think guys are making pitches. So I'll go back to my Mississippi term to where I can shut up. I just use red light, yellow light, green light.
Yeah.
And I want guys to pitch in green. When green means go, and yellow means if you keep running through that intersection in yellow, sooner or later you're going to get T-boned by an 18-wheeler. I want to pitch in green. I want to have the wherewithal and awareness to be able to stop in yellow to get back to green. And absolutely what you're seeing, people, they are running through red lights. The things on red, their body is absolutely not restored, and we are mechanically falling apart because of time. Again, if it's going good now, somebody can eat up 4 or 5. I mean, we had a guy go 6 2/3 inning last night with 2 hits, and he just absolutely got on a roll and got them in between pitches and rushed them and, just contaminated the bats that way. I just don't see the middle ground of like regular baseball. I either see the offense just dominating a pitcher that can't get right, or I see, a pitcher just doing a great job on the mound. But something's going on, and I'd like for us to get somebody medically to talk about maybe the ATP or something like that, or I'm probably going to go make a couple of calls today. I have some resources in that realm. Is there one thing I can do to help our guys as they're dragging a pitcher through an inning? If you can get a guy right now on that clock and get him above about 22 or 23 pitches, you're in a good place. And offensively, you need to be in the middle of trying to figure out how to get that guy extended in an inning. That is absolutely a way to make a difference. And, if it gets late in the ball game, just make them throw strikes. Absolutely make them shove the ball in the strike zone with the umpiring guidelines that we have going on, and this pitch clock. Absolutely make somebody shove it in the strike zone to beat you.
Yeah, Billy, what he just said, and Kevin, it's getting so technical. But Billy, did you foresee the pitch clock being this big a deal and that fast pace? This is like hurry up, no huddle.
Well, I like it I think they were talking about speeding the game up, and I think the average in Major League Baseball is about 30 minutes shorter game pretty consistently. So there's some benefit to that. And I think the fielders have always said, that they stay engaged if the pitcher works quick. We were talking about Greg Maddux earlier. I mean, he needed no pitch clock, 25 years ago. He got the ball and threw the ball, and he worked fast. and the players stayed engaged. He had good defense behind him because of that. So there's some benefits to it. But yeah, when the guy needs a little bit of a breather or things are starting to unravel, maybe a couple extra seconds would make a difference. And I believe that maybe a change they'll make next year is like 20 seconds between pitches, uniformly rather than kind of staggered. I think there's 16 seconds and then 20 based on circumstances, and you can only throw over the first twice. They'll tinker with it, but I mean, for the first year, I think it's gone better than a lot of people thought. But Coach, I wanted to get back to the relationship with the umpires for a second. I was watching Hoosiers last night for probably the 20th time. And there's a great scene in the movie where Coach Dale is talking to the referee. He's like, throw me out of the game. He goes, I need you to throw me out of the game, because he wanted to fire the team up at a crucial moment. Have you done that kind of thing, like strategically gotten tossed to send a message to your players to wake up or to fire them up if they're sleepwalking a little bit?
No, I think there's been a couple of times where I've said, like, a couple innings when I think that it's coming, like I need to probably do something to shake this thing up for my team, or I've said, I like you so much that when I come out here to get thrown out, just make it quick and get it over with. But I think I was thrown out at Vanderbilt. I know exactly where it's at. Tanner Burns on the mound. We're throwing in the rain. I want him to stop the game. They keep going. He slips and he's got the shoulder, and I went berserk. I'm just glad I didn't do it over balls and strikes. I did it over what I thought was player safety. So I've been thrown out of one game in 32 years.
Okay.
And but I don't have a problem with the Bobby Cox. I like watching the Braves when Bobby Cox got thrown out. That was part of the reason for watching. But I think people are trying to get it right for the most part, and I think they're good men. And if I thought it would help us win today, I'd get thrown out. I'm not trying to say I've only been thrown out one time. And I want our players. If my players ever feel like they're not fighting for me, I'm absolutely a failure as a head coach. So I want them to feel like I'm just and right and fighting for them. Yeah. Back to the clock thing. It's making it quicker. We're trying to get a different segment of fans, especially from the major league level. I don't want to lose our purists either. And we're just way to make things going. We're just in an awkward period. It's not that this isn't going to work or this is not better to grow our game out. It's just let's get to this awkwardness, because at the end of the day, quicker clock to make you happy while you're shoving sugar and popcorn and beer down your throat's one thing. The health of the player, mentally and physically, is absolutely needs to be accounted for. So as I go to meetings and stuff like that, there's some things that I'm seeing manifest out. I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's keep going. Let's make this thing good. But the mental, physical, wherewithal these players, that's more important than how quick we're getting to digest entertainment.
Yeah. Coach, I know you got a big day ahead of you, and we'll let you go. And thank you for joining us. Let people know how they can reach out to you. And also, do you have the dates for your summer camps? Because I've got some friends of mine who've got kids that are sophomores and juniors in high school and in Mississippi and some different places that want to come to your camp.
Yeah, I just simply go on there, auburntigerbaseballcamps.com. So I think at the end of this month, we'll start getting those online. And we'd love to have a lot of people. We have a ton of stuff going on at our camps. They're great. Best way to reach me is email butchthompson@auburn.edu. And I just always good to start off a Saturday getting to see you guys.
We absolutely love it and appreciate you taking the time. And good luck today against our friends in Northwest Alabama.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. War Eagle.
Thank you.
War Eagle.
Thanks.
Hey, I tell you what. That's a really neat insight, Kevin and Billy, about what's going on with the increased, the pitch clock, the pitch count, and all that stuff. Kevin, does it remind you of what we did in football, to where coaches were worried about players getting hurt, moving that fast? TV, it's great, increase viewers by shortening the games. But if you hurt the integrity of the game, what have you gained?
That's a great point. That was Butch's description of green light, yellow light, red light. I thought was the best I've heard to describe the mental state really of any athlete before they perform whatever it is that they're performing. And especially, we have thankfully come to realize the importance of the mental side of athletics and life in general. The emphasis on mental health and mental well-being is so important. And I'm glad that we are talking about it. And I'm glad that people are recognizing that. But I don't know if the people who make the rules necessarily looked at that when they were implementing, for example, these rules to speed up the game. Because especially, and I know, I mean, I've been a pitcher. I pitched this a long time ago, but I understand exactly what he's talking about. There are times when you just need to gather yourself. And you can't be locked in every second. You're on the mound, you're at the plate, you're at the free throw line, you're under center. You have to have in between plays, in between snaps in football. When there's a dead ball in basketball, between pitches in baseball, that's the time for you to kind of reset. As Butch was saying, go to red, kind of gather your thoughts. And then you lock back in, and you just can't. It's not possible. I don't think it's physically or mentally possible to be locked in every second that you're on the field during the game or on the court, whatever it might be. So while it is important, to speed things along. And Billy, you made a great point about Greg Maddox. I saw was it his birthday the other day or something? I saw something. He couldn't break glass with a fastball, but all he did was win 355 games in the major leagues. And I used to love when I covered the Braves in the playoffs during the 90s, watching him pitch and Glavine and Smoltz. Those guys were special. And then talking to him about it afterwards, hearing them describe how and why they did what they did was fascinating. It was an incredible education. I feel like I got a master's in pitching just watching and listening to those guys.
Yeah.
So I really do think Butch made some great points, and that's something that's going to have to be discussed among the powers that be in college baseball. Okay, well, we're gaining this, but are we losing something else? And I was glad to hear Butch say player safety has to come first at every level, from the major leagues down to your local community park. That's why we do what we do at Coach Safely. Player safety is paramount. And you cannot make rules. You have to be, or at least be cognizant of the impact on player safety when you make these rules. And I think what we're seeing is, and this happens all the time with new rules, right? Some unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Of the pitch counts, for example, or the pitch clocks, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to end up seeing, and it's going to have another course correction. Pitchers that are pitching when they haven't had a chance to catch their breath for a second, they're going to have more pitches under stress, which is going to cause elbow problems. And then you're going to have a rash of Tommy John surgeries because these guys are grabbing the ball and pitching and not kind of setting themselves and kind of getting ready. And that'll probably be the natural occurrence, like you say. It'd be an unintended consequence of trying to speed things up, because all the pitchers say that, the pitches under stress, is what gets their arm, hurting them, because they're trying to throw too fine a pitch all the time. They're pitching behind in the count or whatever it is. That's what leads to arm problems, not when they're relaxed and they're just kind of in a groove. So you're right. I mean, that, pitching before you're ready through the course of a game, when you're rushing, you've only got 10, 15 seconds to get it together and throw the next ball. That's going to end up causing arm problems. I bet you're right on about that.
Yeah. And why do I just think of it? I'm thinking of it in football terms. Why do defenses blitz? To put the quarterback under duress, to make him make quicker decisions than he wants to make. If you sit back in a clean pocket, almost any competent quarterback can pick a secondary apart if you give him enough time and you have quality receivers. But if you make him throw that ball a little quicker than he wants to throw it, that's when interceptions happen. Maybe that's when you tweak an elbow, a shoulder. So, these are all things that I think need to be discussed. And I thought it was also interesting to hear Butch say, and you guys know this too. Absolutely, Billy, you want defend your defense behind you as a pitcher. They love it when you're working quick because they stay sharp. Now they take a breath between pitches. We used to talk about with our infielders, stand up, walk around, kick some dirt.
Kevin, hold that thought for 1 second. We're going to take a quick timeout. Came up against the break. Be right back and just pick up where you left off.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a fourth-generation residential broker with Hobson Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
Kevin, you were talking before the break. Just pick back up on those thoughts because I got caught off guard on the break.
Sure. Yeah. It extends to the players behind you. Going back to baseball, if you're a pitcher, your shortstop, your first baseman, your center fielder, they love when you are in a groove and you're getting the ball back, you're getting the sign, and you're throwing the next pitch. Usually that means things are going well, and that helps keep everybody on their toes. And you notice this especially, and again, my coaching experience is 10 years of youth ball and youth travel ball in community park and in travel. And so, the younger the player, the more easily distracted, right? And so, a 6-year-old is going to be, he's kicking the dirt, he's looking at the airplane in the sky, he's looking at mom and dad in the stands.
Yeah.
They get more, they're able to focus longer the older they get, but there has to be that downtime in between whatever you're doing, between snaps and football. And I think that's one of the reasons that as you go back what you asked earlier, Rob, about football and coaches and people kind of laughed when they were concerned about, the hurry up, no huddle offenses and the increase in the number of snaps in a game and the duress that puts on all the players, not just the defensive players, but the offensive players too.
Yeah.
But the defensive players, obviously, they're reacting. You can't sub as much as you used to. Now, some of that, I think some of the objection from coaches like Nick Saban was strategic because they couldn't sub and make situational substitutions, from 1st and 10 to 2nd and long or whatever it might be. And so that took some of their control away. And they didn't like that, of course, because if you're a Nick Saban, if you're a Kirby Smart, you have that kind of depth on your roster. You have guys that you have situational subs that you can put in, and not everybody has that kind of talent and that kind of depth. But there was a legitimate player safety concern. Again, it just makes sense, right? The more snaps you play, the more opportunity you have to get hurt. It's that's just common sense. So. But again, this emphasis on player safety, it's a great thing to see. Let's not change the fundamental nature of our sport to satisfy the casual fan. And about the way Butch put it, who's shoving sugar and into their
popcorn. Yeah.
So at some point, baseball has to be baseball, right? And if you don't like baseball, if it doesn't move quickly enough for you, well, then you're probably not going to watch baseball because they're only taking 20 seconds between pitches. It's really not going to, change. I don't think that's going to change the dynamic that much. I love the idea of keeping the sport fresh, keeping it modern, introducing more children to it. And that's where you build your lifelong fans, right? At the youth level. So you got to find ways to get them interested.
Yeah, you're right. And Yancy Porter's joining us right now, Rebel Yell Hotline in Oxford. Yancy, you've got boys playing travel ball and high school baseball and all. And we had Butch Thompson on earlier, right before you came on. You're on with Kevin Scarbinsky and Billy Roberts. And Butch was talking about the pitch clock and the rapid pace and its tempo. And I compare it to the hurry up, no huddle of football and coaches worried about players getting injured. What are your thoughts on what we're doing in baseball just to satisfy, like Coach said, the casual fan who's stuffing pretzels and beer and sugar down his face while he's watching the game and not thinking really about the athletes?
Well, I mean, as a fan, I like the longer games. I like the longer tailgates out in the outfield. I enjoy 4-hour games, but
There you go.
but honestly, what we're seeing on the high school circuit right now in the travel league is they don't waste a minute between pitches. I'm trying to get my son to slow down on the mound. So, I think it's good for the game. The Major League Baseball players, they're liking it. They said that it's speeding it up and wasting a lot of dead time in the baseball games. I think, new things, adjustments are hard for people, but I think in the end, I like it.
Well, I mean, the TV is so it pays a lot of bills. I mean, we know that, and I think we've decreased Kevin and Billy and Yancy the average time of the baseball games about 32 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, that's significant. And I will say this too: you get players when you get injured, if it's a foot and you're always on your feet, or it's your ulna, your radius, and your elbow. That's just a chronic injury, and you every coach out there, you live in fear of your pitching ace or two having some kind of an injury that keeps them out for 6 or 8 weeks because you're already desperate to find pitchers to begin with, guys.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, and here's a comparison from golf. We were all probably watching the Masters last week, and Koepka finished second, but he was complaining about the guy ahead of him, Cantlay, that played a 5.5-hour round. So his messing around and reading putts from 360 degrees, ended up delaying his guys playing in the pairing behind him who were trying to win the tournament. And, so sometimes the game dragging on, there's some gamesmanship there, or somebody's just, being a little indulgent. Things do. I don't know if they can have the equivalent of a pitch clock in golf. I don't think they're there yet, but it's good to, get up there and, get ready to putt or hit or tee off. And in baseball, you can't stand there forever, but you do need a breather every once in a while. If you just gave up a home run, you just got rocked, having a couple extra seconds for the next batter to get your head back on right is smart. But, again, like Kevin was saying, the younger the player, the more important safety is. At the professional level, these guys are well conditioned, and all they do all day long is work on their conditioning. So, safety probably isn't something that needs to be looked after so much. But for youngsters like Kevin is talking about, it's absolutely critical that the adults make sure that safety comes first. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, that's a great, Billy, I think that's a great example of the final round of the Masters last week and the complaints about Cantlay. And, you're playing in twosomes with caddies. It should not take 5.5 hours. Yeah. Even in the final round of the Masters, even at Augusta National, which is obviously an incredibly difficult course, the elevation changes, the speed of the greens. I was fortunate enough, the first year I covered the Masters, I don't know what I don't remember picking up a lucky coin or anything, but first year I covered the Masters, Tiger Woods won his first Masters, set the record, destroyed the field, set the course record, and I followed him every hole. I decided before the tournament he was the story, so I was writing columns, and I thought I'll follow Tiger. Turned out to be a pretty good decision, and then I won the lottery. At Augusta National, they pick a certain number of media members to play the course the next day.
Oh, wow. So
I got to play Augusta National the Monday after Tiger Woods won his first Masters. Don't ask me my score, but the experience was special. But yeah, when you get out of rhythm in whatever sport you're playing, that's when you make mistakes, right? And that's when occasionally you'll get hurt too. And that rhythm can be a quick rhythm, it can be more of a deliberate rhythm, but everybody has their own pace that they play best at, whether it's pitchers, whether it's golfers. But there is a point where you are negatively impacting the game. You're negatively impacting the other players. And Cantlay is a perfect example of that last week. That's nobody wants to see that. Now, I think Yancy made a great point. When I go to the SEC baseball tournament is my favorite annual event.
Mine too.
Here in Hoover, and I'm in no rush. Of course, I'm working, so I'm out there all day long anyway. But why are people in a hurry for the games to be over? That I've never quite, I understand we all have busy lives, and again, I'm doing this professionally, covering games at times, but why are we in a hurry? If you love baseball, do you really want to see it go by in a flash?
No, you want more of it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, Yancy, I mean, this is a great panel. We're going to kind of go, I'll hit you up, Yancy. I'm going to throw one to Yancy, and then for Kevin, and then to Billy. Yancy, switching gears, we got 8 spring games. Well, Florida had theirs Thursday night. Got a bunch more today. They're having the Grove Bowl over in Oxford today, I think at 2:00. The game will be televised like they all are. But, let's talk about that. This baseball discussion, it's been one of the most revealing that I think we've had in a while, because I think it's starting to really Coach Thompson brought it up, and Butch kept saying about, you think about these athletes, you're going bam, bam, bam. And Yancy, I don't know how familiar you are with what Kevin Scarbinsky and Jack Crow and Dr. Andrews is the medical director, coachsafely.org over in Birmingham. Their goal is to train 80,000 coaches a year, youth sports on up, and just not make the games any softer or less competitive or anything like that. Just player safety, health, and well-being, which increases the longevity of those guys' careers and all. But spread the word in Oxford. If you ever want a really cool guest on Rebel Yell Hotline talking about if we want to save sports, which we've got to do, they had the dinner last year in August, and I went, and Lou Holtz and Paul Feinbaum had a Q&A panel. It's one of the coolest things I've been to. But let's just make sure you are aware of that, because Kevin, being a longtime writer, for the Birmingham News, the Birmingham Lead, there's a lot of great things happening, and we want to annuitize the future. We got our man right here, but let's talk about that Grove Bowl today, what you're looking for in terms of takeaways. You got Jackson Dart, but the depth of that quarterback room, and what are your takeaways you're looking for today?
Yeah, I mean, look, I said it on the last show. There really is not a real competition there at quarterback. This is Jackson Dart's team. He is not a step ahead of the other two. He's probably two and a half steps ahead of Bo Sanders and Walker Howard. I think the media wanted to build a lot of hype around the quarterback race, and that was fine. But anybody that's been to the practices and the scrimmages over the spring knows that this is Jackson Dart's team.
Yeah. And you've got Howard in there. You've got some quarterbacks. So Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State. What have they shown you?
I think Howard is going to be a star. He's got that quick release like Corral. He probably throws the deep ball better than all three, more accurate. But he's just a freshman, he's still 18 years old. He's got to get bigger and stronger, and he looks like a freshman. But you can tell, just like Corral his freshman year, he's got all the tools, and he's going to be really, really good. But Dart looks like a veteran. He's thicker, he's stronger, he knows the offense better. I think they're in very good hands with Walker in the future. I think Dart's going to have a monster year, and I think he's going to go in the draft, and Walker's going to take it over for the next 3 years. As far as Spencer Sanders, it's going to be interesting what he does. Does he stay at Ole Miss, or does he transfer out at the end of the semester and go try to play somewhere where he can start for a senior year? I think that's the biggest question remaining.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting, Rob and Yancy and Billy, that now, of course, I think, isn't it today that the transfer portal opens?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
For college football week. And we've heard
April 15th.
Multiple coaches. I know you said it after Auburn's spring game. Billy Napier said it Thursday night after Florida's. They are looking for a quarterback because they're not sure. They didn't say it in these words, but essentially they're not sure that they have the right guy, or a guy that can win at the level they want and need to win at those programs on campus. So they're going to be looking, and it's going to be very interesting to see over the next couple of weeks who does move at any position, but especially at that position, and how that starting lineup of quarterbacks in the SEC, which is there's going to be a shakeup anyway after last year, what that looks like when we get to the season.
Yeah, I think, Freeze went after Sanders as hard as he could, and probably was a little mystified why he chose Ole Miss when you had Jackson Dart there versus the Auburn situation. As we've seen in the spring practices, they don't have their quarterback. Let's be honest. Nobody on that squad is someone that can lead them to double-digit wins or anywhere near it. So, I would think that, if Sanders does transfer out, I would think Auburn would be the first place that he'll look at seriously.
Yeah.
And those guys, and look, the players have the power, right?
Yeah.
They're in a good position.
We've been saying whoever loses out in the Georgia quarterback competition will probably end up in Auburn a week later. I hope that's true. We need some help.
What a world we live in. We're sitting here. Georgia's got Gunnar Stockton, Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, and I think Brock is the freshman. And, we talk to Jordan Hill on the show every week, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. And he seems to think, he might stick around because, he knows he's just a freshman. But that's also a luxury that they can transfer in and play immediately. I mean, Kevin, that's a whole nother world right there that's opened up. I don't like the portal the way it is. I think you should have to sit. But if the rule's what it is, take advantage.
Well, I think we just got to be smarter about, rules around the portal, and guys transferring 3 and 4 times and, playing 6 and 7 years with the COVID year and grad transfers. It's, it's gone. We've gone so far. We were so coach heavy in terms of control and decision-making. But now it's like we wanted to be more fair, which we needed to be, but we've gone so far in the other direction that I'm not sure that's good for the game either. So there's got to be some happy medium where this transfer portal there are more consistent restrictions on it. And you can't just, the idea that this doesn't happen in the NFL, right? I mean, you can't just leave there's a free agency period. There's one period and there are rules around it. And the tampering, you're hearing from more and more coaches about tampering. Apparently it's just rampant, and it's almost blatant now, and people aren't even concerned about any violations or any penalties if anyone accuses them of it. And it seems like that's almost everyone is doing it, right? Because that's the reality of trying to acquire talent that you need once you get. And that's another thing, getting through spring and saying, okay, which we never had before, right? All of a sudden we can say, imagine Pat Dye or Vince Dooley or Billy Brewer or Bear, all of a sudden at the end of spring saying, I need a right tackle. I'm not really happy with my right tackle. I need a right tackle. Let's see who's available out there. Let's make some phone calls.
Hold that thought. I want to continue with this. This is going down an interesting path right after this. Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
It is Saturday. It's a great day if you got to take a dog or a cat or any pet that you have, May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa, Northport, since 1964. They also have the doggy daycare open every day, even have connecting cat condos. So if you have cats that are litter mates or siblings or whatever, you can put them all there together in the connecting cat condos. Kind of cool, kind of like the in-laws. You can take the in-laws there. But May Veterinary Clinic in Tuscaloosa and Northport open every day. Sundays only drop off and pick up at Camp May for doggy daycare and pet cat daycare. Kevin, you're on a roll. We got Hollywood Squares going right now. Buddy Martin, Kevin Scarbinsky, Billy Roberts, Yancy Porter. I'm Jonathan Winters up here in the corner. So, but Kevin, I love this discussion about the portal. That was hilarious. I mean, think about Pat Dye and Vince Dooley. Can you imagine Coach Bryant? I need a new center. Well, let's see what I can do. How crazy would it have been?
Oh, well, it would have been absolutely insane. I want to hear from Buddy, because Florida just played their spring game, obviously, on Thursday night. And it sounded like, Buddy, from the quotes I read, that Billy Napier, he's open to bringing in a quarterback if they can find one for this season.
I think Bo Nix is available. He probably wants to come back from the West Coast for year 7.
Morning, guys. How you doing this morning?
Good morning.
Yeah, we've had a little thing going here. I just spent an hour with my wife, who's a pretty knowledgeable fan, above average, trying to explain to her the transfer portal and NIL deal. Whew. And she's smart. My headline on my column, Kevin, this morning said, it's time to go to the portal. And obviously what we saw, if you're becoming the derision of the SEC with your offense, as Billy is since Thursday night, with that 10-7 game and really not much activity. I wrote this morning that it was the new nickname for the offense was not Fun and Gun. It was going to be called Fence with no O, because there was no O in it, and that's basically it. Look, there's a cycle here, which I won't go into, but around here, it's like Louis Gossard used to say, instead of getting married next time, I'm going to find a wife who hates me and buy her house and give her $1 million. Florida's going to go find another coach they hate and give him $15 million. You can't keep doing that. So at some point, you got to settle in. And so I think this is the big question now. But can you, in fact, find a quarterback to install your system to and start them in September? And the answer to that is no, you cannot. Can you find a quarterback who might be the guy in the 4th or 5th game? I think so. Lane Kiffin's got 3 of them sitting there. We can't use them all. So now the shopping begins today. It's the first day. It's legal. The portal's open in Florida. I said in my column this morning, or yesterday morning, maybe Billy Napier was smarter than we were playing his game on Thursday night, which most of us hated in the media, but for recruiting. And then now he's done, and all the other 50 spring games are being played, and guess where they are? They're out shopping in the portal today. So maybe that was smart. So, yeah, that's the thing, Kevin, is what do you do? How do you approach this? And it's all brand new. And can you go shopping and find somebody? How quickly can you build a team? Because I think Billy's building. He's got the pieces, but, boy, he's shy in some departments. And what I saw on Thursday night was not really encouraging in the way of offense.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And isn't it interesting? That's, the way this game has changed. It's always been about player acquisition and having talent. But the way you're able to obtain talent now that you can after spring, you can bring in pieces that can change the game. That can decide the SEC. It can decide who plays in the SEC championship game. If you can go out and get the right player at the right position. Now, you can't make wholesale changes. And I think, Buddy, that's a great point. Can you realistically bring in a quarterback at this point that can come in August, that can, come in the summer and work, individually with his receivers, on their own time? Can you install this? Can he learn the system? Can he take over the team? Can he win the team? That's what Nick Saban always says about quarterback battles. It's not necessarily who wins the position, it's who wins the team. Yeah. How do his teammates respond to that individual? Because there's always a little bit of a difference, right? Some guys, they just as a natural fit. The players really know who should be the starting quarterback.
Yes, they do.
And they respond to that guy, maybe a little differently than they do to the other competitors. So that's an awful big ask for anyone to come in August and do that. Certainly by the start of the first game, especially if you're playing a team like Utah on the road.
Right, exactly.
You're not playing Northeastern, Southwestern State in that opener.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Just to say one other thing, if I may, I don't mean to jump in here and dominate the conversation, but I just want to say that my friends and I who watch this game and looking for a little something, you're not asking to go out and find Anthony Richardson, although he was here and we're used to watching him make superhuman plays, and now you're just asking for a guy to complete a long ball or make a slant or whatever, or put points on the board. It was a 7-7 game in the last 30 seconds. They kicked the field goal. And so now who that's a big person. I mean, Anthony Richardson, we know about him, right? We know he did superhuman things. And in a way, there was a lot of pressure on Billy, knowing he has a guy who probably will go in the top 10, if not higher, in the draft. Yet best he could do is get 6 wins. He had the quarterback, but obviously you couldn't convert that overnight. What makes you think you can get a guy out of the portal and convert him overnight? And I hate to use a sexist reference, but you can flip it any way you want to. I was thinking this morning, it's the pressure. Like if you are a good-looking guy and you got a girlfriend, or you can flip it the other way. You're a girl and got a good-looking guy. But when you go out at night and she's looking like $1 million, and dressed great and beautiful and whatever, and she likes the finer things in life, and there's a lot of pressure, on you to be able to say, yeah, this is my girl, and I deserve her, and watch me, whatever. You got to make sure that you treat her right, give her the finest things in life, whatever. And if you don't, you're going to lose her. So in a way, it's the same thing, I guess, for a woman or the guy. But Billy Napier had that beautiful girl at quarterback, and he was dealt that hand. He had a lot of pressure on him. How come you got a top 10 quarterback and you can't win but 6 games? Well, we all know the reasons, because of the other pieces and the fact that he's not real accurate, but what a great football player he was. So now who's next? When you look at Graham Mertz and Jack Miller after Anthony Richardson, it's a lot of difference. So it's hard to get your idea, get wrapped around. Yet you still want, guys, tell me if I'm right, a good-looking girlfriend who loves watching ball games, having a beer, barbecuing, and going to the game, whatever. That's easy to be with, right? I know it's a sexist reference, but I'm just trying to put in context. That's kind of what I'm saying here. Now, so they've got Graham Mertz and Jack Miller, who are serviceable, okay, kind of quarterbacks, but they're not going to take you to the promised land. Gator fans aren't used to that. So it's kind of an adaptation. We'll see. That's why the portal is so critical this week, to get those other pieces you need, and they can make a difference. As we saw by a couple of players, the big Cam Jackson, the big defensive lineman from Memphis. Whoa, what a stud he looks like. So, that's going to be it. But the quarterback is the guy. When you go to watch a Florida scrimmage, you want to see a quarterback who kind of gets you excited, we didn't see that Thursday night.
Yancy, jump in here. You're talking about the portal, what Buddy's saying. I mean, you're there with Lane Kiffin, who seems to be a master, an air traffic controller at directing portal players to Ole Miss that produce.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this before, Rob. They got to get another running back to give some more depth there at that position behind Quishon Judkins. Obviously, they got one of the top tailbacks in the country coming out of high school at the end of May, but you'd like to get an experienced running back there. And the weakness on the team, again, yes, your 2 starting cornerbacks have been out this spring, but they've got to get more cornerback depth. Injuries are part of the game. They can't go into next season only relying on 2 or 3 cornerbacks. So those are areas that are immediately going to be addressed. I think maybe they pick up another defensive lineman and maybe another linebacker. I mean, I look for Ole Miss to pick up another 6-7 portals here in the last window.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, it starts today and it goes for what, Kevin, Billy, another 3 weeks, guys?
Is it 2 weeks?
And then after
Is that right? 2 weeks?
Okay. Yeah, do we have a definitive time frame, Yancy, Buddy, Bueller, anyone? I'm not sure.
Well,
how long it is.
last year you could get them all the way through August. So I don't know if they shut that window down. I don't know if that's conference papers is 2 weeks, but they can come and not sign conference papers where they're literally still free to sign with other teams. I'm not sure about that. But last year, you had players coming in all the way until 2 days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's it was wide open before, Billy, and that I don't know if you know, but
I think it's up until the fall practice starts. I think it's a couple weeks. But the thing I don't like about it, I mean, and I hate to be grumpy old man here, but it's hard to coach kids, and then if you have somebody who's not only going to be a prima donna because they've been a star athlete since they were 4 years old. Now if they don't like anything about what's going on, they're out and they can leave and go somewhere else, virtually no penalty. How do you coach that?
I know it.
Now all of a sudden the coaches are on eggshells, rather than kind of jerking a knot in a kid that needs it, or just, trying to get them to develop in a different way, and telling them, I don't like, what you're doing here, but you've got some potential. It would be a nightmare. We were talking, Kevin, you mentioned earlier, the older coaches from an earlier generation. I think that would be the biggest shock to them if you brought a Pat Dye back now, how could he manage these guys? Because his first year at Auburn, he had to run guys off. He had to, prove who wanted to be there and who didn't. I mean, some of those, it wasn't Junction Boys, but it was pretty darn close to that, I think, when he first showed up at Auburn. But how do you do that in today's world of transfer portals? I don't know if you can coach effectively with this situation.
By the way, here's the answer to that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just good old Google. You have to rely on it. It closes. It says opens May 1st and closes. It says the spring for college football transfer. That's not May 1st. Today I thought it was open today. That's what I thought. But it's a 15-day. It's the 15-day opportunity for players to enter their names, and it closes on May 15th. So I don't know. I thought they opened it this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's. I looked up. I just did a little Google search, buddy. I think it opens today and closes. It is a 15-day window.
They moved the
closes
time
April 30th.
Yeah, yeah.
So runs to the end of the month. I think that's the
score one for humans and against the Google. Okay, we won.
That's right. That's right. So the next 2 weeks are going to be critical in shaping the 2023 college football season.
Well, and here's the deal for the colleges that bring players in, which they all are. Let's say, I don't know, hypothetical, you bring in a tight end, and let's say your second string tight end is a freshman or a sophomore, redshirt freshman, an underclassman, and he's saying, hey, now my spot's been taken away of getting 15, 20 snaps. I'd rather go develop at this other school now. So when you bring in players, you might be losing your young players that you're there to develop. So it has a ripple down effect, not only for the player that you're bringing in, but the players on your roster, they might transfer out now. So that's what I worry about the game is developing players. Not everybody is ready made. For the ones that are ready made, the 1-2%ers, I call them, it's not really going to have an effect on them. But for the other 98% of the ball players, especially offensive linemen, quarterbacks, guys that need developing, it's going to stunt a lot of growth around the nation, in my opinion.
That's a great point, Yancy. And, it's interesting. I'm sure you guys are aware a week or so ago, Hugh Freeze brought up the idea of changing spring games, playing exhibition games against other schools, maybe in your own state. And while that on the surface to a lot of people sounded like a good idea, if you're a fan of UAB or Troy or South Alabama or Jacksonville State, which is moving up to D1 or FBS, you don't want to play a spring game against those guys, because what if one of your players stands out in that game? All of a sudden, here's Auburn or Alabama saying, you know what? That guy just competed against our guys. Let's go get that guy.
No, that would never happen. You know, you think Auburn and Alabama would try to get better play? I mean, come on.
Honestly, I've not thought about that. That is an excellent point. And you're exactly right. And that's exactly what would happen. And look, when you have players like Spencer Sanders that are graduate transfer, right? They can transfer in and transfer out and go to another school. Now, the younger kids, they can't transfer a second time. But you got to remember now, colleges are graduating these players, some of them as early as 2.5 years. 3 years, you should be graduating. 3.5, you're like a 6-year senior as far as the graduation. So you got a lot of players that are graduates that are in their 3rd year of college football. They could be a redshirt sophomore. So now they've got the opportunity to transfer a 2nd, 3rd, 4th time. And that's something that has to be addressed, in my opinion. I think that it not only should be a graduate, but you have to be in your last year of eligibility of football. Someone like Spencer Sanders, you want him to have the opportunity to be able to start his last year. But if you're a graduate and you're a redshirt sophomore, that's not really what the intent of the rule was made for.
Let me say this real quick before we go to the break. When I was at Auburn and Billy was at Auburn, Brent Fullwood came in out of St. Cloud, Florida. Coach Bud Casey, I remember calling me on the phone and said, we got this great commitment from a running back. He was a hell of a player. Well, I had a class with him at Auburn one quarter. And Brent was wanting to leave. And another friend of mine who was one of the writers for Inside the Auburn Tigers was at practice one day. And Fullwood was talking about he wanted to leave because he wasn't the man. Because, you had other guys like Bo Jackson and Tommy Agee, Tim Jesse, Collis Campbell. And Coach Dye said, well, the only way, basically he told him the only way he's going to leave is in a pine box. And he just said he loved him too much to let him quit. And speaking of numbers, Billy, the first spring practice when Coach Dye came back, my dad and I were at practice one day, and I looked right next to me. I'm like, there's Governor Fob James. I mean, people just could walk to practice. 37 players quit and left Auburn that first spring practice. Coach Dye kept count because he and his family lived at Sewell Hall, the athletic dorm, till he got his new house built. So, hey, tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. We'll be right back for the final segment on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Back here on Hollywood Squares, Rob Browne, Billy Roberts, Kevin Scarbinsky, Buddy Martin, Yancy Porter. I think the proudest thing we can all say, because we're all parents, is when our kids take on that work ethic that was instilled in us by our parents and grandparents, and they got it. And my middle son is working in that investment banking now since he graduated from Auburn. And I get reports at midnight, at Q1 earnings are out on the big banks. I'm like, okay, you got to go to bed, but you want that and you need that. And if you can't handle the truth, you're not going to make it. But all of us as parents know this. The coaches, the teachers that we love and respect to this day. And I hate it when people say, well, I'm old now. My dad's 94. What he says today is as relevant as it was when I was a 7-year-old. So I respect people that are older than me because they've made it through life that far and they're successful. And to everybody listening, man, take a notepad and take notes when people are talking. And I thought that was Kevin, you just nailed it. Yancy, I don't know if you heard him say about what if the portal had been around with Coach Dye, Coach Bryant, Vince Dooley, Wally Butts, General Nealon. It'd be a sitcom in today's world. But I think the kids today, if you're tough on them, they will respond. You just got to keep raising the bar. Don't lower it.
I agree. You look at all the great basketball coaches, 90% of them still have that Bob Knight mentality. They ride them hard. Some of the fans think that's old school and those days have passed, but the great coaches, they're still on those players hard. And they need it. You're 18 to 22-year-old kid. You need direction in life. You need direction on the field. And I would hate to lose that aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all in how you do it too. My first experience as a beat writer covering Auburn in the mid 80s, and Sonny Smith, everyone knew how funny Sonny was, but he was hard on those guys in practice, and he would dog cuss those guys. And now Charles Barkley had gone to the year or two before I got there, he moved on to the NBA. But even today, Sonny says he was probably a little too hard on Charles, but Charles knew, and Charles was ready to leave. He was about to transfer to Alabama. Imagine that if he had done that. What a story that would have been back in the day. But Charles knew that ultimately came to understand that Sonny cared about him as a person, and they have a tremendous relationship today, for example. And that's the real tell. Are coaches being tough just because they think they should be tough, or are they doing it because they really care about the guys? They want to get the best out of them. And then you see the relationships that Wimp Sanderson has with his former players at Alabama, that Sonny Smith has with former Auburn players. That's the real tell about how effective that approach is.
I think we're being a little hypocritical here, if I might say so. Okay, it's nice to say that you go to Junction and come back with 13 and win a national championship. It's a different world today. And you are recruiting players 24/7 from everywhere, including other guys. You can get other players to come play for you. We haven't even brought in the money factor, which is a whole nother deal. But I want to say, look no further. I want to ask Yancy about this. The names Jackson, Dart, Spencer, Sanders, and Walker Howard. Okay. Do you think all three of those guys can be kept happy all the time? And what's Lane Kiffin going to coach them like? Would he coach him the same as he was before? I don't think so, because you got to make it. You don't want to lose your players. And Lane's complaining already. He was on Feinbaum this week. They're recruiting my players. Yeah, they are, Lane. It's like you recruited the players. This is the world that we're in right now. It's like coaches are being recruited by other colleges. Like Lane was set to go someplace else, and now he's not. So this is the world we're in. I say to you, hey, if I'm Billy Napier, I'm looking at Walker Howard and say, hey, I can give him some PT down here right now. What do I have to do to get him? Do you think Billy's not underhanded, but he's like everybody else. He's going to go for the best players. How is Lane Kiffin going to coach three quarterbacks? Yancy, can you tell me?
Well, and we at the beginning of the show here, it's Jackson Dart's team. He's just ahead of the other two, and it's not close, to be honest. Now, and Walker Howard.
That's better. That's better than I can go get Walker Howard.
Right. Well, Walker Howard would have to sit out a year. He's not a graduate transfer, so he doesn't have that second free transfer.
Perfect.
But here's the deal with Walker Howard's case. He's going to be the guy the next 3 years. I think Dart's going to put up the kind of year where he's going to go in the draft after this upcoming season, and he knows it's going to be his team for the next 3 years. So with Walker Howard's case, that's 1 in a million. Now, with Spencer Sanders, as I said before, if in his case, he's going to have to take a hard look and say, do I want to sit my last year? He's a 4-year starter, and do I want to sit my 5th year holding the clipboard? And so he would be a viable candidate for Florida, for an Auburn, to transfer out, because he is a graduate transfer, and he could transfer without having to sit out a year. So that's going to be it. That's going to be the interesting situation to me. As we know, Lane is not going to name a starter after this spring. He's going to wait all the way probably to game week. But Walker and Spencer, they know, everybody knows on the field. You know where you stand. Any competitor knows if you're being beaten out, and he knows that it's Jackson Dart's team. So, that would be a candidate there for Florida or for Auburn. And he fits both of their systems well, especially Hugh Freeze's the way that he likes to move the ball around. Get his quarterbacks on the roll, a lot of RPOs.
Yeah.
I'm really not as familiar with Billy Napier's style of offense as I am Hugh Freeze because, obviously Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss for a number of years, and I'm close with him. Yeah. And he's a great fit for Auburn. And look, that he picked Ole Miss over Auburn. But if I'm Napier and if I'm Hugh Freeze after this spring practice is over, I'm on the phone with him.
Well, not only that, don't forget you can write him a check. And legally you can't, but it's being done. Okay. So I'd sit the bench for $100,000 a year, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think he's making 3 times that.
Yeah, well, he
so
can make,
that's
who knows? That's a whole other factor. Yeah.
Yep, he's the second highest paid athlete on campus right now.
That means that Spencer Sanders will be available then. So there you go. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well,
so you know where the bidding starts.
Spencer Sanders, he's the second highest paid athlete on campus behind Jackson Dart. So
can't keep them all.
You can't keep them all. But does Spencer collect $30,000 a month and say, hey, it's my 5th year, I'll have fun, I'll still get in some certain plays, or do I risk that money and go somewhere else and try to start and maybe not make that kind of money? Spencer Sanders is not an NFL quarterback. He's just not. So he has shoulder problems. Is another school going to take that risk? I don't know if they would. If a Florida Auburn says, hey, we'll pay you somewhere around that number and you got a chance to come over here and start, I don't know why Spencer Sanders would not look at that option.
Yeah, Yancy, I'm not picking on you and Ole Miss. It just happens to be a case where we're talking about that. I mean, Kirby Smart's lost them too. Everybody's losing them. So it's a different game out there today. So many factors. You can get better in a hurry thanks to the transfer portal and to NIL money. It's the way it is. I don't like it. That's how it is. Those are the rules. Nick Saban's figured it out. He's going to play by it. Let's see what happens. It's going to be a fascinating offseason.
Yeah, it would be kind of funny. I know. I don't know if y'all are aware of the kind of troll that Lane put on Florida.
Oh yeah,
showing the game tied there.
We saw the 7-7 tie. It's in my column today. That didn't go past us. We saw it.
So what if Spencer Sanders did end up transferring over there at Florida and they start lighting it up and what a troll that Napier could have back.
Yeah, that would definitely come back.
Hey, that was what Lane did with that one tweet with no words, with that screenshot of the score in the 4th quarter was the best advertisement for Florida for offensive help in this portal that they could have gotten.
He might have done that on purpose. Lane and Billy are good friends. So maybe Billy told him to do that. You never know. They don't play each other this year. So, who knows?
Yeah, that one will be remembered for sure. So, but you know what? It was well-deserved because it was a very boring offensive game.
I don't think I've ever seen a spring game, and I watched about 3/4 of it with that kind of offensive challenge team. That cannot give Billy a warm and fuzzy feeling. And in today's environment, right? You said that Florida can't keep paying $15 million and then getting a divorce every 2 or 3 years.
Right.
But that's the climate we're in. What if Napier goes 5-7, 4-8 this year? He's going to be right on that hot seat where in year 3, if he doesn't produce, he's gone.
Sure, he would be. That's the way the world is right now. That's what I hate it. Because I think Billy's a guy doing a lot of things right. And you want a coach that does it the right way, the character of the players, the education, all the things he's doing right. And but it may not be right enough soon enough. And you're right. In year 3, if they're not getting it done, competing, he won't be here.
Yeah. And that's why the portal is even more vital. Now there is no longer building for the future, building a program. It is trying to win today, right now, and the future's the future. I can't worry about that. I've got to win this year.
Yeah.
Well, Billy,
You hit on it, Yancy. You're not building a program anymore.
Nope.
You're building a team by team, year by year.
And you look at Kirby, he didn't get sucked into that. But if Kirby would have come to Georgia this year or last year, he would have been sucked into that. Back then, you could build for the future, build a program, and that's what Kirby did. He did it through the high school ranks, and now he's able to continue to do that because he's recruiting at such a level. Look, it can be argued he's recruiting even at a higher level than Saban did during his prime years. So he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. But for a Kirby Smart, for an example, that was able to build a program before all this NIL and portal and all this mess, he would not have been able to do that at Georgia. And would Georgia be where they are now if Kirby would have entered there this year or last year? Probably not.
No, I think you're right on that.
Billy Roberts, you're talking about Georgia, and guys, those three. I mean, Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton. I mean, what are the odds, Billy? We'll bounce it around that all three. I mean, Carson Beck looks to be the starter, the most likely starter. Gunnar Stockton, Brock Vandegrift, both. I mean, that's a deep quarterback room, stars wise. But Mike Bobo will find the one that's the man. But he knows in the SEC you need three because you're going to get beat up a lot, and you got to prepare for the future too.
Yeah, and you're not going to hang on to all three. It's just not going to happen. I mean, guys want to play, and I mean, that gives folks like you and me hope that Auburn's got a job to offer, and guys want playing time, and so there could be a mutually beneficial arrangement that could be struck there. But Georgia's not going to hang on to all three of those guys. So they'll cherry pick who they like the best, and somebody, being a competitor feels like he got slighted and he's going to go and prove them wrong. Hopefully it's at Auburn. That's what I'm thinking. So.
And what do you mean? You're not excited about Robbie Ashford that is challenged to throw a 10-yard pass?
We're trying to get Bo Nix to come back from Florida for year 8. That's what we're working on. Yeah. Just trying to plan.
I can't imagine what Hugh Freeze is thinking right now. I know what he's thinking. He's thinking he is combing through every roster in America right now. Again, I guarantee the first one he's looking at is right there at Ole Miss and Spencer Sanders. But the quarterback makes Hugh Freeze's offense go. But what Hugh Freeze does so well is developing quarterbacks and hiding quarterbacks' weaknesses and highlighting their strengths. So, it wouldn't even shock me. Let's say hypothetically, Auburn was not able to get a suitable quarterback in this portal. It would not surprise me a bit if Ashford ended up throwing for 2,800 yards and ran for another 900 and had 35 TDs. That's just how good of an offensive mind Hugh Freeze is.
Yeah, but I picked up something cryptic the other day, and I don't remember who the player was, but they. Like we were talking earlier, like the players will let you know who the quarterback should be. And I don't know that they're behind Robbie Ashford. And maybe he doesn't treat the other guys right. Maybe his leadership style in the huddle leaves a little bit to be desired. But I'm picking up some vibes around that his leadership, could be a little better. So maybe that's something they can work on. But man, if the other guys aren't behind you and they'd rather see another guy be the starter, that's the kiss of death, particularly all these months before the fall.
Yeah. But there's nobody behind him. That's the problem, right? Yeah. I mean, you can't go with the LSU transfer from a couple of years ago. I mean, that's no way that's happening.
Yeah. Well, we got about 3.5 minutes left, and guys, this has been an awesome discussion. We haven't even talked about Alabama, Buddy and Kevin and guys. We don't Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, but someone said on the show this week, one of our guests, whoever the quarterback is, that's a starter for Alabama, he's going to be a millionaire from that moment on. Kevin, you got a guess?
Well, the scuttle, but seems to be that Jalen Milroe has really grown and matured through spring practice, and he's not the same quarterback you saw in the Texas A&M game, say, last year when he had to step in when Bryce Young was recovering from his injury. So we'll see. But here's the difference at Alabama. The advantage that whoever plays quarterback has over whoever ends up the starting quarterback at Auburn is the players around him.
Yeah.
Auburn has got a lot of needs other than quarterback. They've got a great running back in Jarquez Hunter, but do they have the receivers? Do they have the linemen? Do they have the depth? Alabama has an embarrassment of riches at virtually every position. Again, as Yancy said, because they've built that up through the years when you could develop guys, and now they've got the best sales pitch along with Georgia. Come here, you'll compete for a championship. If you're good enough, you work hard enough, you'll go to the NFL. You might go after 3 years. You're gonna get paid on the back end. That was the selling point for Alabama. Yeah. Despite what people might say about Dodge Chargers and such. But the real selling point was if you stay here for 3 years, you'll get paid on the back end. You'll go to the NFL. They would have that running tote board of how much the NFL contracts of all their players in the league were making, and it was astronomical. Is that as effective today? So far it has been, because now you can get paid on the front end. Now you can get paid as, hey, I'm a quarterback. I can go to Auburn. I can go to Florida, and they're going to pay me such and such. I can get paid now. I don't have to wait 3 years. So what kind of players are you? What kind of person are you? Are you willing to wait for the big payday, or do you want to go for the money now?
And I would think, and one quick comment on that, and that's a great point. But I would think that the great players, the one that Saban wants, he wants the ones that want to make $50-60 million on the back end, and not $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 on the front end. Even $1 million, say, right? Those are the guys that he's going to continually want to recruit. The players that have enough common sense to look at the big picture.
That's what you want. That's what you like to have. My wife was asking me earlier about this. What do you do? Just say, I'm a great player. It's who will give me the most money. I said, you could say that. Didn't work out so well for Jaden Rashada. But you could also say, I got a $50 million package waiting on me in the NFL. If we got a son, we want to go play someplace, and he can pick up $50,000 and play in there fine. But when he graduates, if he's good enough to be elite, he might make $50 million. As parents, what do we want him to do? And then she said, well, who do we find out from? Who do we talk to? Who are our advisors? This is the sticky part, too, about the ages of the people. Yeah. But it is a very good point. I think that's the question. But Nick Saban's long in the tooth. So will he be there in 4 years? That's the question.
Buddy, my wife told me, she said, you would look much sexier if you added 2 zeros next to your name. Now, notice she didn't say 1 0.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah. Hey, guys, Kevin, Buddy, Yancy, Billy, unbelievable. We ran out of time, but Buddy, let people know, and Kevin, how they can keep up with you. And Yancy, it's the Rebel Yell Hotline, Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and Super Talk Mississippi. And Kevin and Buddy sign out, and let's do it again next week. Awesome show. Most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world because we got the best guests. Buddy, start off, and Kevin, close us out.
Well, I do a show at 9 o'clock at night called on the Buddy Martin Show. It's on streaming live. I'm aspiring to get great guests like Kevin Scarbinsky. If I can ever reach him, get him on the show. I see him everywhere else. Maybe I'll be big enough to get him there. And then, of course, we have GatorBait, which is all about the Gators and college sports. Go to GatorBaitMedia.com, read some of the stuff, see if you like it. Sign up. We'd love to have you.
Buddy, I'm in. I'll give you a call. Hopefully we can do it this week. Check out my writing twice a week, Sundays, Thursdays at the Birmingham Lead. It's Birmingham Lead, LEDE.com. Check that out. And go to coachsafely.org. If you have kids that play sports, if you coach kids that play sports, learn how to keep them safe. Educate yourself on the basics of injury prevention and recognition. You'll be glad you did.
And let us know whenever you know the date of the banquet coming up. And that's huge. And Billy, we'll be in Atlanta this weekend. Looking forward to going to that coaches deal with Bruce Pearl and Hugh Freeze. Yancy, have a great time at the Grove Bowl. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday. We are out of here.
See you guys.